3D fight animation is one of the hardest things to learn because it's not just moving a character, it's making punches, kicks, and impacts feel believable. So in this series, I'm going to walk you through a simple fight scene in Blender 5.0 step by step. My name is Clip and this is Roundtable Animation. I animate fights and I help animators make their combats look clean and readable. Now, I made a version of this tutorial a while back and it became one of the biggest videos on my channel. So this is an updated, cleaner version for Blender 5.0. Now, quick heads up, this is not a Learn Blender from Scratch series. I'll go slow and explain what I'm doing, but the goal here is fight animation fundamentals and the principles apply to any 3D program. I am using a rigified version of the Unreal Mannequin. If you see anything on my page, I love using the Unreal Engine, so the Unreal Mannequin is what I'm using. And a simple environment, but honestly use any rig you're comfortable with. If you're new, simpler characters are better. So let's jump into Blender. We're gonna go to File, Open, and load the scene. Now, quick note, my native program is Maya. So my Blender the key map is set to industry compatible. So if you want that, of course, you go to Preferences, key map, industry compatible. But if you're on the default Blender controls, I'll keep the key prompts on screen. Before we animate anything, we want to go ahead and just set up our environment to see what we're doing. So from here, we have our two characters that we're going to set up. And how I like to set up my scene is to go into the animation tab here. I like to have what I'm going to see in my camera view, and one end I have my dope sheet here for my timeline on the end, and of course my camera view, or at least my overview of what my default workspace. We're going to clean this up a bit because it has all these lights and cameras that I set up to make this look pretty nice and pretty cool. But in order to hide that, we're just going to go to extras and hide this from here in this drop down. So that way we only go ahead and see our characters, but all of the things that are light in the scene still take place. From here, I'm going to select my camera and go into my camera view, which I do by, at least for me, is F4 on the keyboard. And I'm going to lock my camera view so I at least can see what I'm animating here on one end. And then over here, it is my combat view where I actually animate what's happening. So from here, what I'm going to do is pull up my reference. I am going to use this video right here as a reference. I think it's great. They have a lot of, I think using something that's called like an anime styled fight gives very expressive poses, easier for us for animation to catch on. For it, I like using stunt footage to get ideas and references because I believe it gives like the most clear reference and easiest to get some nice poses in. But something like this where they try to imitate, I guess, an anime style fight really just means that they're going to be as expressive as possible. So we're going to use this as a reference to create a quick fight scene. I had some comments from the first version of the video where maybe the 5-part series thing may not work. So we're going to try to knock this all out in one video from start to finish. So we're going to start with one character first. So we're going to take this character. I named them Striker and Sentinel. I don't know. So we have the attacker and of course the defendant. So we're going to take out this character first. We're going to start with this. So from here, I'm going to take my camera and move it around to maybe the backside to maybe imitate our reference footage. I'm also going to turn on this auto key here. And what that does is that when I make any movement with the keyframes here, it automatically sets a key onto the timeline. That way, anything that gets moved here gets saved onto the timeline. So I'm going to just cut the frame just a bit down, all the way down to 100. And set myself up in pose mode. We'll start with the first character here, and it won't take much to really put him in a pose that sort of works. I'm going to be able to use, I think, Rigify to clean that up a bit. And it won't take much to get this character to be in this pose. It's not the most detailed of posing, but I like to use reference to just shape out a little bit of what we're going to be looking at. For legs, I like to keep it in an IK, and then for arms, we're gonna do FK. Let's see here. So I think this is good for here, and I'm gonna push it out a bit. I know that there's a bit of a push to maybe let's keep the reference the same there. And again, we're just using it to block out some pieces here. That kind of work out. And I like to keep it pretty rough, not making anything too exact, because we always can come back and clean later if certain things don't necessarily work out according to plan. And then what I will do is I will mirror. This is our mirror button. Therefore, a lot of the things here that I just did, I can just make an adjustment real quick and it'll just snap onto the other side. I remove the mirror button, and therefore now both hands can do that. You really can do that for anything. So say if I take this and mirror it, it'll be able to copy on both sides. So if there's anything that you want to set that's a little bit faster, you can do. So certain things I have it done for, and certain things I keep it where I'm doing one side over the other. Let me open up just a little bit more. And what's good is that you can see the posing from the back there. That way we have an idea of what's happening. Keep this a little forward. Maybe move this just a bit more back. A bit more forward. Turn. We'll have the torso leaning more towards the back here. Leaning more forward. Out. Something just really rough. It's pretty good. Try to do an all around. It's pretty solid. I could probably work on it just a hair more, just to get like a gist of it. I don't really want to change it too much. If I make it too strong of a different pose, then once you start making movements, it'll really differ from the reference. So I want to have it set where this is already in motion. All right. So that's setting our first character. We're going to set our next character in. Right? We're going to move him to a different start. Move the character to the same sort of start line where they're coming directly at each other. Makes a little sense. And then we can always play with the camera like they did in order to achieve a certain effect. But right now, at least we know the characters are going to be coming after each other. So from here, the reference also doesn't have, I would say, maybe the greatest of start poses. So I would potentially just start with what I can and then push the reference into something a little bit stronger. Is great. Okay, and I'll just move the feet here. Perfect. So now we have a little bit of a different thing. Now he's running like the character from Weapons. That's hilarious, right? With the arms out. So we'll have I believe if this arm is out, we're going to do the opposite. Move the character here. All right, the weight. Into arms out. And here, right, so a nice little running pose. Maybe that's a little too much on the nose, a running pose. I probably can have it a little bit outwards, like we're actually in action here. That's probably a little bit better, right? So then we can sell the action just a bit. And you guys will see what I'm talking about in a minute. But ideal, we have both of our key poses here. We have both of our poses ready to go. And even though it seems relatively simple to set them up, we're going to block in some of our key poses and then keep it pretty cool and pretty clean, consistent. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the key in sets into hold character. For right now, it'll be easier for me to block this whole thing out, and then eventually when I'm done, switch it to the next thing. And what that does is that when I press S to key something, it only sets the keyframe here. So when I actually set something up here, it doesn't necessarily set the whole keyframe on all the characters. Now, I don't know what the hotkey will be for Blender, but I know what I'm going to do is Control S, and that's actually going to set all of my keyframe for the entire character. I know another way to do this would be to insert keyframe, and that would be from here, which I did is just Shift S and I insert the keyframe to the whole character. So when I click something, as far as that hotkey, it does the whole character versus just the control set that I'm using. So same idea, I'm going to click this, go to pose mode, hit Shift S, which is my personal hotkey, but whichever the hotkeys for Blender for this, you just go ahead and click that and Shift S, and that does the whole thing. Once that's set, everything with a key will be set to go. Now, from here, what I'm going to do is going to select this. That way, I'm only, when I click on something, whether it's one character or the other, it's only showing me what's selected instead of showing me the entire timeline here. Now, looking at my reference, the next key pose is going to be this punch that she does that does not hit. He does a sidestep, but we'll get to that later. But we want to get it into this nice pose. Now, the way she's delivering this reference, because I'm doing it frame by frame, the intent is that she was going to throw, it looks like a haymaker or some sort of hook into it. She was going to step and throw a hook. We're actually going to pose right here on this particular pose. It's a good pose. It's a good animation pose to step on because it sets up directly and what we're going to do next. So the next pose, I like to do things by tens. I'm not sure what the timing is. It's about 15 for here, but we'll play with the timing eventually when we get to it. But so the next thing is we're going to start with let's start with our defender, because once he's out the way, then we can really set a pose here for the other person. So from here, we're going to do just a simple, again, it doesn't have to be anything complicated. From here, we're probably going to stay a little bit closer to the reference. He does a sidestep, so we want to give some distance away, a sidestep, and then a pose in here. We're going to fix the camera in a second, but we want to solidify this pose here. We are bending all the way forward for this. And then once you really start having your poses in, you're going to really see how much fluid it is to keep the rest. We have our, which is great. We have this here, maybe switch, looking at the punch that kind of was just given. Maybe bring this arm down. We can stay closer to the reference on this. That's a pretty good, I just dodge the pose. I know he's gonna just Michael Jackson slide into it, but it'll make sense once we start putting the other keyframes, which is good. And then that's it. Now we're gonna move on to this character here. It's a little bit different. He's got to cover some distance, which we'll cover. So from here, we want to actually have the character feel like we did some movement. Now, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to move this control. I did it for the first one, but I don't personally like to use that when I'm animating my scenes for at least grounded fights. If they're flying or anything like that, then maybe I'll use this whole thing instead of trying to move this whole character. But if they're flying, then yeah, cool, this is much easier to use. But if they're running or anything like that, this becomes much more of a hassle to work around than just moving the character. There's a good bit of distance to cover, but it'll make sense once we set this down. So the pose here will be down, and it's just going to be a hook that was missed. And then we'll do the camera next after that. I always like to start from the feet down. Once we know the distance that was traveled, we can then move on to the next bit up, which is of course be our center of gravity and our torso. Then that bricks. And then to get the feeling that we really just missed this pose, fix the knee again later. I might even have to move him just a bit closer. Perfect. And then from here, I'm going to click on my mirror and then just do the same thing, because now we have punches in, and then we can actually have the bit where they use the punches a little bit into their, he balls his fist up a little bit into the fight here. Ooh, not sure what I'm doing wrong there. So let's start with these four first. Yeah, that's much better. Great, and then this can go here. Eleven. Perfect. Yep. That works. Maybe bring this one just a little bit in. Nope, that definitely could use some work. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I do want it to look a lot better than it does right now. Yeah. Looks like we have this knuckle coming out a bit. Yeah, that gets the job done instead of being too particular with that. But now we have that. Now we need a little bit more energy. Let's go ahead and make sure to take off the mirror before it copied our whole thing. So we're gonna have a little bit more of an over rotation to give it just a little bit more energy, right? We really want to push that pose. What we had before was a little bit standard, a little bit easy. So here we can really push that pose. Again, even though we're looking at the reference and everything is good here, why not push it just a bit, right? It's a really extravagant pose here. Now, I think that we can move it closer. I think that the performers here want to make sure that they don't hurt each other, of course, but we have some leniency there where we can actually have them in a direction of where they could get hit. Now, again, it looks like they're starting to place, but it'll make sense. So the first thing is, now that we have that, we actually want to go ahead and adjust our camera too. So we'll switch into our camera, and the camera is here, which isn't the same as our pose, and I would want to just adjust that just a bit. I'm okay with, again, it's our first little fight scene that we're making here, so we can go ahead and adjust it just a bit. Let's see. Now let's select the camera. We're going to rotate it, and how I'm doing it is I'm bringing it down here so we can rotate it the same way, in a way that kind of makes sense. He's a little bit more back, so it's fine. I actually don't want to be too far back. I want to keep it a little bit more cinematic where we're a little bit here. Maybe we can show the feet just a little bit, because once we get here, we're really going to come in and push in. And I think that they rotate the camera a little bit more even, so we can come in and rotate it back to where it's a little more even, but not as much headroom. So that should make sense for here. And that's pretty cool, right? A little bit of camera movement, camera motion. It's our first keyframe, right? We have one frame here, one frame here. It's not too bad. right? So our next keyframe is we're going to go with the anticipation pose, right, of the defender character coming in for this kick. So we'll make that about 10 frames. Keep the numbers pretty easy. Now, what's also interesting is that sometimes the performers get ready to prepare for the kick or for any hit, just that way they stay safe, but we do not have to do that here. Now, I will say that some distance would make the kick look better, so maybe we might even play with that. We still have the ability to do so. We're gonna have the attacker look at the defender, because once I come in for a kick, we're really here, right? So I may change this up. Let's get this character out of here first. And while I'm making this pose, straighten this up before we get to that leg. While I'm making this pose, we'll keep this here. Get the arm really up. And I'm going to change from the reference here, not too much, but enough where we're just exaggerating just a little bit, because we want to really get this pose to really read right. So I'm going to do that by really exaggerating this arm and shoulder. And honestly, I probably could have just moved all of these here. That's good. Kind of did some quick moving around. And then we're going to lean back some, just so we can really get this pose here. Bend this in and bend it a little bit. It's reading very Spartan kick. And again, I want to get this silhouette pretty good in the camera here. I think this is good. So from here, I'm going to switch my foot into an FK foot, which I can just switch it to FK, switch out the RK. And then once I do that, we'll be able to bring this up just a bit. It's a little bit of I would say, an intermediate technique when moving into your kicks. Is switching from FK to RK, switching from IK to FK. And the reason being is that it gives it a little bit better, easier control, better arcs when we're doing so. So here, trying to do that in IK wouldn't have looked as clean, and we'll worry about the transition. We'll worry about the transition after the fact. Right now, we want to get our poses in. And I think this is a pretty good pose, maybe not the right camera for it. I can probably play around with that, because even here it feels a little bit better, right? So maybe we're done with this one and we set this up. So I would say maybe the initial, and I don't know why he keeps coming back here. Maybe because I keep. So let's get him out of here. Maybe I won't hide the characters going forward. So let's bring him back to maybe a little bit back here. Right, because then the kick can seem pretty good, right? Could probably even move him here, because it has to make sense a bit. Oh, Did the wrong one. That was my fault. Yeah, that's where we were before, I think. We can bring them a little bit forward. Maybe some forward some more, maybe more to the side. That looks way better. That looks way, way better. And then, but I just want to make sure that this covers the distance. Maybe the intro pose is here and maybe we're angled a bit. And this is what I mean by blocking the initial poses here, because if I had cleaned this up already, then I wouldn't be able to do this and play around my timing and my spacing. So now if we're here, maybe I can angle it a little bit better where the punch looks like it makes sense. And then we have the coming in for the kick. Okay. I'll go with it. So what I do like here is that it looks like she's going for the punch here, and then she gets kicked. So what I am gonna do is probably just go for this punch, because right now I think that's gonna give a much better of a snapback. I think it will look stronger than having this open up here into a free kick. I think that it works better for a stunt. But I think if the character is in the middle of a move, it might even work here. And it works really well for them. They're professionals, so they make it look really good. But let's give it a shot. We're going to always play around and try it again in a different way. So what I'll do is have the character come around, because we have 10 frames. We don't have much time to really discern here. So I'll just have the character move, open up. So their torso can be opened up. We'll have their arm open for a punch, right? We don't have, again, much frames to really go upon, but we want to create this strong sort of pose. We'll stand up a bit to get some air, some momentum. Open this up a bit so it doesn't look like the leg is getting caught here. I may even open this up just a bit and turn this around. And I think here is an ideal spot, right? And then as the kick is going, you want to continue with it. I think it's here. I think it works. The only thing I think I would fix is, for me, is getting this a little bit more in so we can really see this. Maybe down a little bit more so we can get that separation for the silhouette. So then when we have our camera's not going to be able to move too much with this, and we'll adjust it just a bit, but right now we're just setting the groundwork. And now that we have that pose, we are going to hit the impact pose from here, which is a very strong pose. And that's really not that far off from before. So I'm going to go with 3 frames. Don't really have much time. So we're going to go with push in, because that would be strong. And feel if I do this. Oh yeah, I could have just done that instead of unclicking the whole thing. So that's good. If I do here, this becomes much easier to just pose. It looks a little silly at first. Right, we really want to check on this foot placement there. And just open up the leg. and just really extending this pose here. And what we're doing is moving the arms down. We'll mirror this. I think we can mirror that. I think it's similar enough. It's a nice cheat way to do it. We'll fix the balancing here. Fix the neck. And then angle it. Think it's good. Almost there. Yeah, and the more you can, of course, you can exaggerate, the better it will be. And of course, if make it a little more stylized. If you want something to look more realistic, you want to maybe keep it to how it looks like in the reference. Because then now, when we look at it, now we have some motion here, right? Boom. Right now we're feeling that energy. That's going fast, and it's going pretty fast because it's going through all the frames pretty quickly. So we're actually going to do this where it goes to frame dropping, and that will actually keep it at a nice 24 frames per second. And what I have it here is at 60 frames per second, which is probably what happened. So we're going to actually drop this, didn't realize it's that high, to 24. Now that changes up my timing a lot. A bit, actually not that much, it's the same, right? 15, 25, 3, what I saw there before. So it is, but it keeps it a little bit. I wasn't even looking at the frames per second, but luckily Blender keeps it the same. I believe other programs change it for you if you change the frames, the FPS, the frame rate. So from here, it actually looks pretty good, right? And that probably was what I was worried about before. Yeah, there we go. That feels much better. So good. So now from here, let's go into our defender, or now attacker then defender, right? So from here, they were here. I'm actually going to, because I just noticed that some of them weren't saved for the whole thing. So I'm actually going to save the keyframes here to Shift S. That way everything is saved onto this keyframe here on 25. We're good here for this pose. We're good for this pose. I'm going to do that for the other one too, just in case if I missed anything. We're going to shift here on Shift S, and then on 20, Shift S. That way everything is locked in. All right, of course, that way our work is saved. So now that this is in on 28, we have a response here where you can see that we kicked here, and then we're going to kick right through. It's a little, again, it's a little, you can see that's a little, it's a little off. Actually, not really. You just look at it, but it'll look good. So from here, we're going to continue following the same rotation as if the kick was supposed to go through. So it's a good method on keeping your realism and keeping the fights feeling good. So if my character was rotating, I want to keep my character rotating as if they didn't lose that power, that momentum. The only thing that changes for the most part is now the character is being set back. So if we keep the character rotating, which looks good because that's where we're keeping from the reference, but that's the reason why it looks good, right? If we keep that here, we bring the head down for the force, right? The head's going to feel that force, but we bring the arm to continue forward. Now, we don't necessarily have to bring it the same way that the reference does, but it does give a good point. You can really be really exaggerated here, get like a nice Looney Tune style pose, or it could be realistic, but this is a good spot here. And then from here, we're gonna show the characters lifting off from the ground just a bit. Same thing with this one. And then drop the drop this here. All right, pretty good. Maybe I'll exaggerate more. Continue. This is pretty good. I wonder. We probably could exaggerate going forward. I like to have my things a little stylized. So I might push here. Bring this down. That's good. And then that will make it feel pretty good when they're falling down. So then from here, now that we have our key poses in, the last few poses is the characters resetting and then falling. So, not too bad. So from here, we're going to do another 10 frames from here, which is probably just about 38. But you know what? I want to push it to 40. I like my even numbers. And we're going to start actually with this character. And if they're falling, we're moving all of these to now FK. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it to FK, but I don't want to switch to FK for the foot there, and it does this right now. Right now I want to stand in for where it is. So I'm going to click this button, and what it's going to do is going to snap my FK controls to my IK motion. So now when I switch this, you'll see that there's no change here, right? So if I click this and right now I make the change, you see the change happens. But I'll do the same thing because it's switching back to where it was before. And so you can see the visual change, right? What's going to happen is that this control is going to copy wherever we're at here, which is a great tool. Makes it much faster for animating. And it's just snapping the IK, snapping the FK to IK. And then once we do that, we can go ahead and get rid of our IK control. Switch to here. And then what that's going to let us to do is be able to do this nice roll pretty easily. Okay, so this will switch. That is just for the other one. There we go. So now from here, we can now do this roll. It looks like a nice simple roll that this character is doing. Continuing with the rotation, mind you, right? And catching themselves onto the floor. Boom. Here. Pretty good. And we don't have much left here, right? I do 2 seconds, right? 24 frames per second. So let's get to 50. I think 50 is a nice solid number. Right, nice 2 seconds of fight. And then from here, you really don't have to get close here with the reference. Of course, I want to make sure that everything is the same here on 28. So on 40, we can be pretty loose here. The reference does give you a good guide on how someone would recover and fall, but it's not, if you don't get 100% to the reference, it's gonna fall apart at the seams, right? So for what I'm going to do is get this pretty much the same here, get them onto the ground. We can probably straighten up our character up a bit. Right, they're falling onto their arm, and then eventually we'll probably switch back to the other control here, right? This one's landing on her hand. I may not do all that. I might just do this just for now, just to get the movement started instead of worrying about hand placement. And then we'll work on, of course, the bits of it pretty soon. From here, believe it or not, I actually want to move the camera. So I'm only going to touch that in a little while. And just adjust the camera similar enough to the reference, but I like to maybe show more of our character and just keep this here. Maybe we can show more of our character resetting, because now at this point, like the reference, the character is just going to reset and stand ready for the next attack or admiring their victory, making sure that their opponent is down. Think the leg is missing. Yeah, now that we're gonna put the foot down, we're gonna go right back into our IK here and switch. Bring this down. Just reset the foot. Do I need to be this foot's acting a little weird, so let's set that back. Sometimes I just go into the controls and just reset my everything there just to make it look more standard. I'm just selecting all my controls and hitting 0. And then from here we can go ahead and remove this. Just great. It's good. Now we're looking down at maybe our opponent. Pretty cool. Bring this one around a little bit. Straighten out the arms. And we're a little bit still wound up here. Want to seem a little bit more relaxed. Maybe the distance down is too much. I think so. Oof, we got a nice little fun thing to fix there, which is fine. So boom. Yeah, we gotta lay back a little bit. Okay, this is almost done. We gotta bring down these shoulders. There we go. Nice little subtle pose. Not too crazy. And then yeah, we're good. I think the only difference now is that we need to be sitting back. Or are these more opened up and looking down? Arms more relaxed. That's a little bit better. There we go. I'll take it. And looks like I was able to put all of my whole character on 41 instead of 40. What I'll do is keep it simple. As I'll go ahead and if you did it correctly, you would be able to put all your characters on one frame. But looks like I mixed back and forth between the old pose and the new one. So I'm gonna put on 41 and just come in, delete 40, move back to the 41 keyframe to 40. So now everything makes sense here. And if I have anything on 41, I just delete that. Nope. There you go. Yeah. So then from here, right? So now that we have that, we want to do our nice final subtle pose. Right, so the other character's doing some more rolling. The purple character, or at least our attacker or defender, is not doing anything. It's just like posing into the next pose, which of course is the easier of the two. So we'll go ahead and finish this out by just having them do a nice little weight shift. Is moving to the front a little bit, relaxing some more. Right, we only have 10 frames, so we don't have much to do here. And bringing the heel up. I think that's a nice touch. Right, simple, not much going on, and then we'll work on offsetting that. And then for this one, we will take the character, go here, and it looks like they just start rolling around on the floor. So what's good about that is that all we got to do is just continue the same rotation. So we will just continue the same rotation as we were doing, and then just have them continue on the same path as they were going. Right, boom, and then we just have them on their back, and then just adjust maybe everything else to a little more reminiscence to their reference, a little bit easier, so you don't have to come up with too many things. Right, pushing over, maybe looking down. Perfect. So now when it comes over, much better. Now we could just clean them up. So then that's our blocking stage. If I were to start, we start from the beginning. We have our character here, punch, and do a kick, right? So again, not much, and we have some cleaning up to do, but our first phase is a little bit over. And another thing before we jump in, another heads up, my Combat Murder Bootcamp is officially releasing later this month. If you've been watching my tutorials or anything and thinking, alright, I want to take this seriously and actually get good at Finimation, that's exactly what this bootcamp is for. It's the full step-by-step program, how I design combos, block clean poses, fix timing and impact, and polish everything so it looks professional. If you want the details, the release info, and see what's included, check out the link below. Okay, moving forward, we are now going to, the next step in this is to make this fluid. And how we're going to do that now that we have our key poses is going in and putting in some of these in between poses, right? So we have our key poses is the first one, then there's the second, but we're missing a few here. The first one is getting this character to move out the way. Right now he is sliding, but we want to have them get out the way. So we're going to set in just a few poses. I'm going to again look at my reference and set up my anticipation pose. And the first thing is what he does is brace for impact. right? Or brace for have that anticipation to move from one side to the other. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save some of these keyframes. So because we are sliding from one to the other, Blender kind of interpolates what's going to happen from one side to the other. So what we want to do is set it up where this stays in place. So I'm going to copy and paste here. So now you'll see that it looks a little weird because it's going to do a little bit of that and then move over, but we're going to fix everything. So the first thing is I am keeping the pose there because I don't necessarily want to move the foot placement first. And I'm going to do a little bit of a bend, right? A little bit of a bend. It's almost like our squash for our squash and stretch. And gonna bend in this pose just to like brace for impact. It doesn't really have to be much, right? We're making nice rough outlines. So from here, you can see just bends in and then jumps, right? And then we're going to do a few poses here. And that actually is pretty good. For now, that's a good little clean pose. Doesn't have to be much. Jumping in from here to there. So now that we have that, I'm going to finish up for this character on that pose. From there, we have the character moving from one step to the other. And how we're going to do that is we're still going to keep this planted here and we're going to move this over here. Now, the good thing is we know that he's going to step from one side to the other. So we're going to have this foot get there a little bit earlier to get that lunge effect while keeping the other foot kind of stationary. So let's just say from here, what I like to do, especially if I blocked out my pose already, is if this is the ending pose, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch this pose to where it starts maybe a little bit earlier, where it feels a little bit more stretched out, where I think maybe here, right, almost there, right, because anything more feels a little bit too stretched out, so I think here works. And I think I'll just fix this to be a little bit more here. Keep that. So there we go. You see the lunge there, right? And then for this other foot, we're going to keep, and we're just moving this pose, keep this foot stretched out like this. So now it has this sort of like feel of one side to the other, right? And I also still want to move this a little bit forward so the body moves last. We have the shuffle of the foot first. And right now I'm just playing with the foot placement of our character, right? There. So now that we have that, if I want to, and again, it's up to him, is where you can use your stylistic variations where you can have him slide up or lift a foot up a little bit like he's really lunging it out there, right? So you, depending on what your camera's doing, really make it seem that's happening, right? So there's like a slide, like a lift there. Boom, you can see that. And then from here, same idea, I can lift it. It's not in camera, so normally we wouldn't necessarily spend the time to do that, but it takes nothing to just lift the foot once we have our timing straight. So now that we have that and we have our timing a little bit set there, we're going to go ahead and fix now the arms just a bit to work with the posing here. Now his arms are coming up here, but I want to say we can also take a little bit from the reference and exaggerate maybe this pose in here. Let's go to 5, save all my frames, and from this pose, keep it a little exaggerated. Bring this up. Maybe bring this out a little bit. Move the torso. And then that kind of gives a little bit of a motion, right? And then we can also then fix that into the next pose, right? Because it bends, and then in between the two, while it's coming up, we want to bring maybe the body up a little bit, because if he's jumping, then there's going to be a little bit of elevation into the pose, right? So you have our squash and then our stretch. It's not really much, right? It's not much, you don't have to do a lot, but from then on it lets it flow, and then we'll fix the overarching with the arms here. But that's like our first, putting a little in-between pose there. And I staggered it, right? There was some on 5, there was some on 9, but we landed it into where we feel like, okay, we have some motion here until the pose here on 15. Now I do want to fix this where we have this motion here until here, and all I'm really gonna do is have him settle into the pose. Again, luckily we have our reference here we can use. And this arm, I want to continue on that motion past the where it ends off, where it has a little bit of swing from that movement. So we have this here, and believe it or not, I may, and I know it's my first time doing it, delete this frame just to see if the interpolation with Blender is a little bit more natural. And it is just a bit. There's a few more tricks we can use to make it feel a little bit better. We let that arm hang a bit. We might bring this up just a tad beforehand, just to really give it that overarching, right? Keep our head towards our subject. Good. And then the last thing I'm going to do is let this arm, this bottom part, delay a little bit. And then maybe let this delay just a little bit. It's not much, but I think it will make a difference when we bring it together. And the one thing I'm going to do right now, there's something called like a linear path. I know Blender, what it does, it shows you like these straight lines to let you know it's going from one key pose to the other one very straight. But if you want a little bit of a spline, which means that the curves are headed to each one pretty, this is probably a little bit confusing for a beginner, so let me explain this a little bit easier. Right now it's going to one pose and another pose, and we're adding in-betweens on there, but what it's doing really is getting there the most static way it can. So what I can do with the controls specifically, especially for anything that's swinging, I'm gonna adjust the interpolation mode from linear to Bezier curve, and that will give it just a little bit of a swing in between. What you'll see is that in between these keyframes, there's going to be a little bit of a natural swing now that you'll see with the arm that wasn't there before. We can, using the keyframes, continue to exaggerate it. So let's say if I bring this here, I can actually do this. I might break the model a bit to take it off the, like a different thing with the elbow a bit. I don't want to do too much because I don't make it too cartoony. but you can see that even just that hang there makes it feel just a little bit organic, right? And we keep doing that. I think for anything, especially for the other arm too, and maybe even the torso, we would do that. We just want to do on everything. Like I wouldn't want to do it on the feet. I want to keep that pretty stagnant. So then now this should feel pretty fluid. So now that we're cleaning this one up, I then want, of course, that foot is just not working at all. So we're gonna fix that pose next. And from here, this pose is pretty good. This one is actually pretty good. I'm actually pretty satisfied with what's coming there. I would say the only thing I would probably want to do, and this is just my eye, is once we're here, I would want a little bit of a bend, maybe save this keyframe and then just bend it. At this point, I'm not going to be saving all because now every keyframe has a little bit of an action. Maybe bend this a little bit with the neck. And it's just enough to give a little bit of just a bit of a settle. It really doesn't have to be much, but it needs to feel like a little alive. And then when we lean back and of course make this Bezier curve, and yeah, it's just a little bit of a settle. If you see it, there's a little bit of a settle with the body of, okay, we landed here, settle, and then we're coming back up, and then we'll fix the feet. So for the other foot, in order to fix it, knock out that elephant in the room, we want, of course, make a pose. This right here I think is just due to the switching from IK to FK. And I think the easiest way for me to fix it is just switch it from to FK earlier instead of it happening in transition, which is exactly what's happening here. So we'll bring the controller out. Right, and then what I'm going to do is from here, from this frame to this frame, and just switch it from here. That will fix it immediately. No point in doing that afterwards, so we'll switch it. Let's see, from here. Nope, other one. Sometimes I don't remember and I just have to snap it. So we'll do it for the next frame, and then just switch it from here. And then once I do that, boom. It's not much of a thing, and then we'll do it, of course, on the way back. So now from here, now that this is fixed, we're just going to add in some keyframes beforehand to make this work. And what I'm going to do is just bring this out. Now I can't see this in my reference, right? I can't see it, but this is a little bit of where once you see enough kicks of these, you have an experience of like how this usually work, which of course you would naturally use another reference. Want to make this a little bit quicker, so I might not look that up, but I have an idea of how these kicks usually go. This is not going to be in camera. I'm not going to clean that up entirely. And then we have this bring it up and then kick, right? So if you play it in a fast motion, it works, right? At least that portion of it. I may want to switch the motion of it, right? First Bezier curve, see if that fixes it. It feels like it's slow here, then it speeds up. So I do want to fix that. Not that, again, if you're going for that, fine. I believe it's just a little bit quick. So I'd want to move this a little bit here. Let's see what happens here. Just fixing the timing better. So now that we have that, and that kick is done, let's of course move back to what we did before, where we are it's doing like this morphing thing. So the same idea is that we're going to take the frame before, snap it to IK, or the one, I don't know, I can't remember that, and then snap back, right? So from here, it is, let's see, here, good. And then it should snap back to the other one, good. So then we have the little bit, much easier. And we'll just have to add a keyframe in between, just like the other one. Usually for most part, you may think just put the foot down, but a lot of times for balance, you would want to bring the foot in. So for this, we're gonna have a nice pose where we're coming back in from this kick. We're coming up a little bit. We're bringing this foot in. Here we giving it a little bit of an angle offset so it's not 100%. And then bring the arms in. Still using my reference as a guide, but not just like a hard set that I have to just copy and paste, but using it as a guide, but still using my animation to see what I feel and what looks good. Because it is obstructed a little bit of what I'm seeing, but from here, and still we have a little bit of cleaning up there to do, but I think from now the kick, we fixed that weirdness with the kick. So we're good with this, and then the arms feel strong. We'll fix like the motion. There's a little bit stagnant here. And again, if you're going for it, leave it, but kick, and then we have a land, right? So now let's fix this landing, and then we're good with this character. So we have this here, and then we're gonna bring the character, the movement down. And how we do that is just a little bit of an angle here. So we bring this up, maybe we bring this all the way up and down. And from here, we want to move this momentum a little bit earlier before maybe our pose here. We might want to shift this in earlier, actually shift this in here so it feels better, and then delete this pose. Whoop. Let's see. If I delete this pose, it deletes the whole thing. Interesting. Oh, let's see. Let's save the rotation here and then delete. Nope, you know what? We're gonna save. We're gonna keep this. Pose here. And then just move. We'll move this back. Let's see. We'll move this back a bit. I think that's a faster, cleaner way to fix this. Maybe move this. Want to animate to camera. Yeah. We'll fix this here. You know what? Let's just fix the body. That might just be better instead of rekeying. Boom, kick, and step. Yeah, I'm sure in fast motion it's not gonna bother me too much. Let's see, I'd probably right step, pot kick. Let's first maybe fix these arms before I worry about the feet too much. Let's worry about the arms. And we get back to the feet a little bit. I'm sure it's not going to be too bad. So from here, we're going to bring this in just a bit so it has a little bit of an overlap. And then that way we have a little bit of a movement after the arms go, and then he snaps up pretty quickly. So what I would, so I need to move the body, the control here, because he's coming in here, and even though, and this is where now I'm moving off a reference. So I looked at the reference, pretty good, but now I feel like maybe the timing is just a bit off. Everything looks good, but the settle for me is a little bit different. I would want to first, the kick is good. I would want to bring this up just a little bit up beforehand. So kick, and then I would want to bring this in beforehand. So bring this in, bring the character in, bring this leg in to really give like a nice clean pose look. That's a much better. And then the settle for me is a little quick, so the snap can be quick, but the settle's got to take some time. So I'd rather have him get up a little bit later. Wait, that's too later. It's weird how a few frames make a difference. And then the arms gotta take way longer. I'm even okay with it taking, maybe that's what I needed. This one takes some time to get there. And then if there's a little bit of motion there, let's just remove these at 50 at the end, just so it's not distracting. And just settle differently. Maybe these. Maybe these can be up to here, up to 50. They're looking good. And now the other arm. Don't think we ever seen the other arm doing its own thing here. So we'll fix that. For me, I'm just worried about, yep, that's good for me. So from here, the other arm is doing its own thing. We want to have it also differently, but also stay down there just a bit. Maybe delete this one. I know we set it in, but now I'm not necessarily feeling it. And yeah, set it in maybe a little bit, maybe towards the end by the side, but maybe not from here. I feel like that doesn't look as good, but maybe here's two back. Actually, it's not terrible. And again, I'm looking at it through this lens here, not here too much, but I think it fits. Yeah, that's, we could always clean and continue to make it better and make it sharper. But if just we're gonna learn how to animate right into Unreal, right into Blender. So used to looking at the Unreal mannequins. So the only thing again I want to fix is a little bit of a pop here at the bottom. I'd want to fix. It's not entirely too important, but I would want to fix it just a bit. And how I'm going to do that is first remove the keyframe that's here for the kick. Take this when it stops into here, right? Because we're going to do another snap. Is move I would say move it a little bit closer to the body so it has a little bit of a better bend and a weight shift. I think we'll look at that first and see how that looks, right? I think that looks better. It's coming down. And then I'm going to come back here for this one and then shift it, right? Oops, what did I do there? So let's save it. We'll save it or delete. Both work. Snap. And then go back into here. Nope, but the one, I'm always going to forget that. So then when he comes down, snap, set. And then if I want any kind of set motion with the foot, just to add a little bit to it. Is gonna be like here, and then it steps in, not much, and then it automatically feels a little more intentional. And I think that's it. We can always go in and clean it up some more, but I think this kind of works for our nice little first bit to this, like this first phase into the fight. You know, I'm thinking it's looking pretty good. And it's just telling you just need to get the building blocks of the fight going. You know, you're seeing just a little bit, you know, how it can, you know, go from start to finish. You're seeing a little bit of you know, from going from pose to pose, seeing how it can change from something that's simple as having a leg out here and using some poses, and really getting a feel of how the fight looks. So now what we're going to do next is we're going to start to fill in some of these in-between poses, right? So we have our main poses here. We're going to start filling in some of these in-betweens in order to get this to look a lot more fluid and a lot more believable as far as a fight. So I'm going to switch out some of the controls here. Switch out to get out the IK, get that going, and switch it down just to get the positioning a little right. Like right now I feel like he feels a little slow going into it, so I really want to make sure that the arm when he's swinging feels like it's going to connect to his body. So if we have that there, I think it could be a little bit more believable. So let's see, it's getting this arm down, leg down, just copy paste. And right now I'm just trying to see how I can bring the foot to where it is before and then have it make sense when he's doing the haymaker. See, we have this leg coming in here. Almost feels kind of good. Taking a step. I think if I move this back a little bit and just kind of have like the arch on that toe, that'll kind of give me a look of moving this around and putting the foot down. You know, I'm kind of using the reference as, of course, as a guide, but I'm also, you know, using a little bit of the scene itself to kind of give me an idea. So I don't want to stay too close to the reference. You know, you'll see me say that a lot, where you kind of use it as a guide, but if you see the feel the scene giving you something different, you know, then kind of go by that. So we're gonna have him kind of like square up, you know, to his opponent and really, you know, exaggerate it, make a really good pose here to accentuate like the prep for this swing. Okay. Got this going. Get the arm up. Bringing his arm back a little bit. And I just want to make sure that this looks good, that when he goes for the swing, especially if I'm going to use this as my camera, when he goes for the swing, it looks good, right? Let's see if that kind of fits. Almost there. Almost there. Let's see if I adjust, maybe let's get this arm back. And I'm looking back and forth in between my camera view and then my animation view. I may go ahead and switch up the camera just to kind of, I don't want to necessarily use this. So a lot of times when I do animate, for the most part, a lot of times animate to camera, but for freedom, sometimes if I pose my characters, because I tend to lean towards mostly realistic or stylized realism, if I make it look good all around, regardless of the camera view, then that kind of gives me a little bit more of a freedom to move the camera, and it won't necessarily break the action. So I make some adjustments here into the next pose. I moved a few frames in between our first and our second and our third. Then now we're gonna actually go for I guess the last pose right before, or for the swing, the middle of the swing. And because the next few frames where he settles is pretty short, it should look pretty good. Let's go ahead and move his arm back. Get this swing. Looks pretty good. I still want to make sure that it looks like it's gonna hit him. And I don't necessarily think that looks good, so I kind of want to angle up my head so it feels like our character just dodged it. I think that feels a lot better. You can see there, like, it really feels like, okay, if I didn't move out the way, I could have really dodged it, and we can really even push it a little bit more if we kind of like move the character's body up a bit, just so this will kind of work. And it really feels like I really got out the way. I should really sell the action. But so gotta make sure the foot mechanics kind of work here too. So I really want to make sure those work. But we can have a little delay, a little bit of secondary action there, just to be able to feel that the momentum of that swing was there and was intended to do so. For a swing like that, if you do like a straight arm in between, though, it kind of gives the illusion of like a swing, right? Even though the intent is to keep it bent, but if you keep it straight, in speed, in motion, it'll give that illusion. If you honestly, if you kept it hooked the entire way, it will just kind of, it won't feel the same. But now that we've made those adjustments, see, when we make those adjustments, I think we can still kind of push it just a bit. And again, it also depends on the style, right? So I think this sort of looks good. And so I think this is looking good. Just going back and forth. Just really checking out this leg, just to make sure this leg really looks good. Bringing this back down. Yeah, I think this works. Bring it back down a little bit. And then just really want to set it into place. And I'm a real stickler for the details. You really want to, it may not make sense like on the large scale of it, but once you kind of like see it in motion, you'll really see the difference. It doesn't necessarily feel as floaty. You can feel the same, and there's a little bit of float there. Let me see if I can fix it simply. And right now what I'm doing is adjusting my frames in between. So once I'm doing so, I'm also looking into the camera if I can really notice it and make it like a difference. Like if it really feels floaty, I'll go ahead and try to adjust it. But if I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference, I'm gonna go ahead and just leave it, move on to the next thing. Bring the other pose, that first pose in, just to be able to get that initial pose when we're starting a little bit stronger than it was from before. Okay, what about the um and then from now what I'm going to do is, in order to kind of make these curves feel a little bit more natural and feel a little bit more like they can not so stiff, I'm gonna switch these to a Bezier curve. And what that necessarily does is that when I then play the motion, it doesn't feel so stiff, because right now we're kind of like choppy going in from one pose to the other, and a little bit of that Bezier curve kind of smooths in the lines. Sometimes you really do want to kind of have some more of a hard sharpened like pose that you really need, but using these Bezier curves in between, it does make it kind of loosen up, especially for like those arcs. So from here, that knee is really popping out. We gotta go ahead and fix that for sure. So it's fixing out the legs, just really fine tuning here. Now the legs, when Blender goes ahead and does his interpolation, it kind of, it does its best guess, but it's not necessarily doing, its best here. So some of these poses may look a little funky in between, but let's see. All right. And let's see if we can get this other arm to be a little bit more angled up. Yeah, and sometimes when you're just looking at things, you just really want to make sure that it just looks as good here. Let's get this arm to really sell like this move beforehand. It still has a little pop there, but we're that's what I'm gonna do. From here, we're going to really make sure that this swing actually really works. Because right now, let's go here. And all right. So I think it's looking much better, and I may be going ahead and doing, going pretty meticulous by making sure that this all looks good. But I kind of want to lock in these poses and lock in these moves here while I'm cleaning up before I go ahead and move on. That kick really looks good though. Okay. So let's go ahead and get this foot. Some cleaning I gotta do here too. Gonna copy and paste just so that foot can just stay there in place, and just fix this knee. Move this knee around a little bit. Still a little pop there. See what we can do to fix this pop. Because it looks, actually no, it doesn't look good there. I was gonna say it looks good in camera, but it doesn't look good in real life. So, or at least the live view. And a lot of these issues too can be fixed in the graph editor. But for these beginner type of videos, I really like to stay just right here within the dope sheet and just kind of like manually adjusting these things. Instead of going in there. I feel, at least I remember when I was learning the graph editor, was a little intimidating. We may go into it, but I'd rather just kind of fix these little arcs like this right here, in between just the dope sheet, and just knock it out here versus jumping into the graph editor. So, good. Back, I think it looks pretty good. I think the only other thing really is, oh, those feet look real twisted. We'll get to that when we get there. So I'll go ahead and yeah, I think this is looking good. Okay, I think that looks good. It's good to bring this in. And now we're gonna kind of just mess around with this pose here. What I don't necessarily like, and right now this pose is actually kind of funny in the animation mode. And in the like in the camera I think it looks good, but in the animation it kind of looks a little bit doesn't look that great, but I think it looks good in camera. But what I do want to kind of fix here is now the sort of look of, okay, now the character looks pretty like I want to say the character looks pretty like they're waiting to get hit, right? And I don't want the characters to look like, you know, like they're waiting for the next move and that they're not necessarily, you know, trying to you know, hurt the other character. So, or attempting to move or getting into that pose. So I do want to kind of like have a little bit of a pose there in between to really like make it feel as if that the intent is to take out the other character. So I am trying to add a little bit more of animation there in between, right? If we can add some animation there, it can kind of feel like, okay, there's some intent there, and it's not necessarily just gonna be just easy, you know, for the character, or he's waiting to get hit. Okay. So let's see what we can do here. And I really want to swing this around a little bit, just so it can kind of feel a little bit better and feel a little bit like it's intended to do something here. Let's see. And let's go with, yeah, I think once we try to like fix this hit pose, I think that I'll kind of create like a nice little snap too. So once we kind of like adjust this like hit pose, then it's really gonna feel like, oh, he really was attempting to hit, but this arm is really in the way. I don't think it actually looks as good as maybe I think it does. So let's try to like adjust to get these arms really going. Let's see. All right. So I think if we move this arm back a little bit, that should kind of work out a bit better. And yeah, that looks, yeah, because now you can kind of feel like, okay, this character was attempting to move, and then the hit throws not only them off, but it starts to set them up, and it just has a nice little, you know, natural flow to it. Yeah. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and fix the feet. It's actually not gonna be too hard to fix these feet. What we're gonna need to do is something that has like a snap to IKFK. So we're gonna bring back the other controls here to do so. And how I'm gonna fix this is all I'm gonna do is just snap it to the other one, right? Because this is just a weird thing where it's going to merge from one to the other, and it has like a like a little weird transformation in between. So once you kind of snap it from one to the other, like here it's in IK and then it switches to FK, and there's no longer those issues, right? That's kind of gone, and now you can kind of now just pose your FK controls in a way that feels more natural, right? It's a nice little easy thing to do to switch it out. So now if I just pose it out a little bit, so it feels a little bit more like natural, then that should be good. Let's get this leg over here. Get this one down here. Not much. And again, now I'm looking at the reference again, but because it's just a fall. Like, there's so many different ways someone can fall and react to that. So I don't necessarily want to, set myself up where I'm so attached to, the fall from the reference that I can't, make it work. So I, will be pretty loose with this. Just to see exactly like how, what we can do with it. But but I do want to still make sure that it looks good. And from here, especially for our impact pose, I do want to stretch this out a little bit and kind of really exaggerate like the fall effect that we have. Yeah, and the more I can kind of push that pose, that anticipation pose, into the next bit, I think the better it'll come out. See, and I'm just it's looking much better. So now from here, what we can do is sort of adjust like this fall pose. And I can, again, it doesn't hurt to use a reference here. It's like a min-max positive. I can use it just to kind of give me a little bit of reference, a little bit of guidance. I also kind of want to keep, this video not too long by experimenting with different ways this character can fall. But I also, want to give myself a little bit of grace here to come up with something that I think, can work a little bit outside the box. So, let's see. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, and I think we're just going to just adjust a little bit of the legs here, and I think that'll kind of give you like a little bit more of like a snap type of feel of them when they're going into the fall here, kind of like rolls into a nice little snap. I think that kind of like makes sense. Yeah, because you can kind of see it feels a little bit more smooth. And not only that too, because also the top of the body is almost like hitting it before the legs do, so it kind of gives that overlap in action type of feel. So it kind of works. We still have some more adjustments to make here, a bit to really do, especially with the arms and the body hitting the floor. But the more we have the skeletons for it, the more we have a little bit of like an idea. And at this point, we're now just kind of like making it pretty, making it impact. The majority of the fight's done. But this is a nice, a part of it too is a good part of a fight is impact. So from here now, we're gonna do the same thing. This one is not gonna work as smoothly as the legs did before. We're gonna try to at least switch it to an IK. Let me see if I can try to do this by hand. I don't trust this at all. At least not for this. Not to be quick. At least it's not gonna be a quick fix. This is gonna take a little bit more meticulous. Going from this to the other one. Let me see if I can try to snap it to make it work. I'm not sure. It brings a little bit closer, but it's not the same. So we can try to like make it work, and I'll adjust. It's gonna look good in the final. I just wish it worked a little bit better for me. And what I do like all the time too is when you guys I'm getting better at Blender. A lot of times you guys tell me, hey Cliff, you could have just clicked A, B, and C and fixed what you needed. But so sometimes it's funny to kind of like do this and then like, this was the easy fix all along. So let's see if we have anything here. And yeah, I'm gonna have to do this by hand and do it the long way. It's gonna look good once it's set. But yeah, it's just gonna be a little wonky. And if you're using your own, your own rig, maybe it's set up a little differently than my rig here. But you kind of see the outline of it, right? You see the outline. Now, once you put it down, the character puts his arm down, then it kind of rolls on the arm there, and it kind of fits to like, to make the character roll on their side. So that's pretty cool. So from here, gonna keep this rolling on the thing, and switch back and forth. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Yeah, it's a good spot. Yeah. So now to kind of, and it's sometimes, I wish it would have worked a little bit better, but sometimes you gotta do a little bit frame by frame of a certain move. But I think that looks good. So now we're gonna just do at least the leg portion of them of it hitting. Still have to move the body down, but the one arm is good. You can see it, like the arm comes in and does like the little rollover and snap. I'm okay with that. I think fixing the other arm would make much of a difference, and really like, okay, it's really gonna look a lot better once we get that started. So right, so let's go ahead and put this down. See, and let's get this arm down, almost like he's trying to catch the floor. And we're gonna try to have it reach for the floor. That's okay. I think I got that from the reference, but that's okay. I'll kind of have it. It does break it up a little bit instead of like a full on then yeah, so he goes into catch himself on the floor. I think that's fine. So we're gonna move it so it not only doesn't look like he's doing it, but it also registers that in camera. Whoop, not that one. And let's get that there. Let's tighten it a bit. Switch it over back to the to IK. Let's try the snapping thing. See if this works. It never does. But let's try to get as close as we possibly can. Where's the control? Over here. Bring this down. And yeah, and that looks good, right? So now we're doing the same method of like, okay, we're doing from one pose to the other, but once we do that, then we can kind of like bring it down to have it do the same sort of rollover thing, and now we can kind of start hitting it with this move here. Okay, once we have that. Okay, so what also is going to help is getting this body down. Luckily, because the other one is an IK, the other arm that we did the work on, it should be there, and the legs is not going to really, have much issue. So once you kind of set this up, that should sort of work. So from here, let's go ahead and just adjust really the hips a bit, and that's really gonna give it like that kind of like bounce feeling going from one to the other. So get this roll out here. Now we put this sort it down. There's just a little bit of the elbow here. And yeah, and that's looking much better. So once you see that, once you can put this down, right, it kind of gives like a nice little roll there. Boom. And hit. Yeah. You can see it then catch and then just nice little roll. Right. Sort of looking at it. And again, it starts our fight scene. It doesn't have to be necessarily so clean, so perfect, so 100%, but that's gonna do it. Right? Went from the two characters, whoops, get the camera in there. Went from the two characters, going from the absolutely nothing, using our poses, using our just messed up there. Just using our little reference to go ahead and set this up. Just want to make sure I get this a little bit bigger, and maybe adjust the camera here a little bit, because right now it's pretty good, pretty standard, but I just kind of like want to adjust it just a bit so it sort of makes sense. What redo, don't undo, sorry. So make sure it, okay. So it's going to get my camera here. And now the animation is done. I just want to go now touch up on the camera a bit. And it's not bad, but it's a little, it's good. We can do a little bit more work with it. Let's see what we can start with. Let's get this out. Select our camera. Go back in and just lock our camera to view. And so when we start here, it's a good spot to start. But I do want to adjust it just so that the beginning, even though it's not so much, we have a clearer silhouette between the two. And we keep in both of our actors in frame. So this looks good, and we kind of want to also have the part that the audience is looking right now is almost like dead center. So it kind of like keeps it a little bit highlighted. And the same idea is here, like this right here is sort of like lower to the ground. So it's not too bad. But if I can adjust it where the camera is not doing things at the same time, and just to give it a little bit of camera shake, I'm just gonna move the camera just a bit after the frames, and all I'm doing is just kind of moving it left to right, and moving with the rotation of the rotation that's actually going with anyway. So when that gets played, you can see a little bit there. It's not enough to throw it off, but it gives a little bit of a jump. But we have a little bit we can do here. It has like a little bit of a wonky movement at the end. That's probably a little bit too static though, right? It goes in and just completely dies. So maybe we can bring it back, but not the same way of going like up and down. Maybe we can kind of like wean this off a bit. Move that all the way back. See how that works. No, still jumpy. It's just giving like a up and down type of look. Don't like that. Let's go move this all the way around. Maybe that might do it. Still movement. Let's see what we can do here. If I just cut the frames here at the end. Yeah. But before it starts to get a little bit weird at the end, we just kind of cut it. And it's a nice, now it's a true 2-second thing. It's 48 frames per second. And it's set up to look good. And and there you have it. An animation from start to finish, right here in Blender 5.0. If you do like animations like this, a full step-by-step program, if you do like this, I have a full step-by-step program called the Combat Animator Bootcamp that you can go ahead and check out.